All right, we have another Dynasty buy or sell
That's right.
video for you. And honestly, at this point, I feel like every time we record content during a week, news breaks and then the videos change. So I'm hoping that nothing changes in the situation. But we're talking about James Conner. He got the 3-year deal. And now we need to decide. I mean, he looks a little bit more attractive in Dynasty perspective.
Yeah.
So we need to discuss if we are buying him, meaning I'm trading for him, or selling, meaning I'm going to get value for him now. To recap, in 2021, he had over 1,100 total purpose yards, 18 total tutties.
Right.
But it was at 3.7 yards per carry. Finished RB5. So, Badake, are you buying or selling James Conner in Dynasty right now?
You know, when I was thinking about this, and I said, why not? I kind of want to play devil's advocate here because I always, you know what? Nah, sell him. He's too old, or he gets injured too much. Why not James Conner? Huh?
Right.
Let's just go for it. We know it's risk, but obviously there's so many question marks moving forward. Yes, he signs a 3-year deal. What's going to happen now? You know, Chase Edmonds is gone. Is he going to get the workload? Or is it going to are they going to draft somebody? Is it going to be a 50-50, a 60-40? Because that still is an option. I don't think, you know, a thought process was, you know, maybe Breece Hall can go there. I don't think so, because I think Breece Hall will go to a place where he can get the workload. So I'm looking at these other guys down the road, down the line, you know, like a Jerome Ford. Even though I don't want these guys to go there. A Jerome Ford, a Rashad White, a James Cook can go there. Maybe even Kenneth Walker, but I don't want him to go there definitely because I think he can get the workload. But if one of those guys go there, I do believe they can take the Chase Edmonds role, and James Conner can go back to being what he was just coming in and getting those touchdowns. Why not have a guy like James Conner? Maybe comes in 10, 15.
Well, if Breece goes there, it's going to be a different story.
100%.
Let's be honest. 100%. If Breece or Kenneth, but
and that's what I'm saying. Like I hope that they get one of these other smaller running backs so they can play that Chase Edmonds role and come in.
Right.
Like Zach said, let's not forget RB5. 18 total touchdowns this past year. That's behind Jonathan Taylor. If that the Cardinals found a formula, and they found the formula that can work with James Conner. Once again, if he gets the 100% workload, then I'll probably change my thought process, and we don't know that. But this is the risk that we take in Dynasty. This is the risk that I would take in going out and trading for him. Once again, 50-50 workload or a 60-40 for James Conner will be best case scenario moving forward.
Best case scenario is that they don't draft someone and he gets 80% of the workload, 70%.
I feel like that's worst case scenario because we can go back to how much he's been injured. Every single year he's been injured. He missed so many games. I wouldn't want that. I think if the formula stays the same, they get a young guy to take, once again, the 60-40, the 50-50 workload. James Conner can come in and stay with his role because we even saw that when he came in that stretch with Chase Edmonds got hurt, he got hurt. Why? Right. Because he got the workload. He got the workload. So I'd rather not do that.
I have a lot of questions to ask here in a second, but I'm gonna let you finish.
100%. And I'm pretty much finished. YOLO. You know.
Okay.
It's fun. It's Dynasty football. Let's take a chance. Let's have some fun. James Conner could bring you some good value, especially in a Dynasty startup. But trading.
Okay. Firstly, it is actually okay to invest into players that are not 20 years old. That is okay. All right.
100%.
So I'm not going to sit here and say don't invest him because he's old, but I am selling, and I think the value is at a prime time to sell. You might want to wait until after the draft, make sure there's no running backs. If I'm a win now team, I'll consider a hold, but every other scenario, I do think I'm selling. Number one, let's remember how quickly things can change. James Conner has been a roller coaster for his entire career. It's been a roller coaster. Right. Okay. In 2018, let's look at all the years that he's been a starter for a team. In 2018, Lev Bell holdout. He was the RB6, balled out. In 2019, he was the RB35, missed 7 games due to injury. In 2020, he was the RB27, missed 4 games due to injury. Last year, he was the RB5, still missed 2 games due to injury. Let's take a closer look at that 2021 season that we're talking about right now, okay? They used James Conner last year differently at the beginning than they did at the end of the season, okay?
Right.
Weeks 1 to 8, there was a split with Chase Edmonds, and this is what really worries me, okay? In weeks 1 to 8, there was a split with Chase Edmonds, and during that time period, James Conner was RB21, and he was averaging less than 1 target per game. 0.7 targets per game in that time period. He had 5 targets in 8 games. Almost 50% of his workload was coming from touchdowns. All of his fantasy points were coming, like 50% of his fantasy points, coming from touchdowns.
Absolutely.
That is not something that I want to rely on. Now we look at weeks 9 to 15. Edmonds gets injured. Connor gets the true workhorse role. He's the RB3 in that time period, weeks 9 to 15, averaging 4.6 targets per game. Almost 4 more targets per game without Edmonds, okay? He was utilized then as a true workhorse, and he got 20 opportunities per game. So that leads me to the question. Is James Conner 100% the workhorse for this team? Is he the workhorse running back?
Exactly.
The $1 million question that I don't know that we can truly answer. And it leads me to looking at this running back room. And I'm not personally convinced that this is the final running back room for the Arizona Cardinals this offseason. Okay. I think with all the moves that we have seen, it wouldn't be crazy for me to assume this either. Okay. Let's take a look at the contract, by the way, that Connor signs. It's a 3-year, $21 million deal, but it's only $13.5 guaranteed. Okay. Also important, there's an out in his contract after 2024.
Sorry, $13.5 million. I thought that was funny. Continue.
Well, look, I'm comparing it to the other running backs.
I know.
We would take that in a heartbeat for our entire life worth of savings. But, this isn't a CMC, Kamara, Zeke, Dalvin type financial commitment here.
Right.
Okay. I want to point to another contract. Nyheim Hines. Nyheim Hines only has $1.5 million less dollars guaranteed on his contract. Same amount of time. And it was signed last year. So you would have thought the market would be better, higher cap.
Right.
So to me, I see Nyheim Hines and James Conner's deal very, very similar. This is not RB1 solidified without a question. We are riding or dying with you type of money.
Yeah.
I definitely think that this speaks more to the running back market in general, more than just Connor. However, this does not hurt the Cardinals long term if they were to move on from him. It's not like they're in the Dallas Cowboys situation where Zeke is going to kill you for the next 5 years if you cut him, so for me, I don't think that I personally think there's a very good chance that they either sign another running back or draft one in the 2022 draft with how deep it is. I mean, you can get a good running back, a decent running back, a split time running back in the 4th round in this year's draft.
Absolutely.
And the last thing is the injury history. He is going to be 27 in May. Again, you don't have to avoid players just because of age, but we're talking about a player from 2018 to 2021. Since he's been a starter, he has missed 19 games. Okay. And in that time period, that is just under 30% of his games he's not been present for. Okay.
Yeah.
So the injury isn't the only reason. I explained everything else. However, it is a part of that decision-making process for me.
Absolutely.
And as a player gets older, it is always more difficult to recover from those injuries. I don't even play in the NFL, and it's harder for me to recover from a brisk walk now. I'll go to bed, I'll wake up. Why are my legs sore? It's like, well, you walked a couple miles yesterday. And even, it's a little bit more extreme, but you look at Julio Jones, like when you get older players, it's not easier to recover from these injuries.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those knickknacks become a much, much bigger deal. So let's talk about what's a fair price to pay. I'm going to speak from a selling perspective. You're going to speak from a buying perspective. Before the 3-year contract, I think you would have been lucky to have gotten a mid to late second for James Conner with the age, with no contract. Now, I do believe you can get a late first. I do believe that is possible to grab a late first for James Conner, and the wide receiver depth in this class. I mean, I would much rather invest in a Jahan Dotson, in a George Pickens, Jamison Williams, who could potentially fall in the late first. So, and there's also running backs I would be willing to flip Connor for. Some of these guys might take draft capital, but I would rather have Josh Jacobs. I don't know how difficult that might be. It might be easier than we realize. Okay.
Right.
Elijah Mitchell is someone I would consider. I can tell you what, I went out and got Elijah Mitchell this week, not on purpose, but it was an offer that was given to me that I thought maybe people are lower on Mitchell than I thought originally. So I think you could look to get that deal done. And then Dalvin Cook, if you're in a win now mode, go try and get Dalvin, because I feel like he is going to be the better running back this year. How about you? Where if you're selling him or you're buying him, what's your buying perspective?
So if I'm buying James Conner, these are 3 running backs that I question their career and their future, maybe re-signing in the next couple years. And yeah, I just question them. And I think I'd rather take the chance on James Conner right here, right now. And those three running backs are Miles Sanders, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Zeke. These guys,
I get that.
And these are the guys that, Miles Sanders hopefully has an opportunity. We don't know. He's in a backfield that has Kenneth Gainwell, Jalen Waddle, Clyde. We have no idea what's going to happen. If you can offload Clyde for James Conner, I think you're winning every single day. At least that's what it feels like. And Zeke, he has lost a step. That the thought process is that he's going to get the 50-50 workload or lose and go down to a 50-50 workload with Tony Pollard. So that's why I think it's okay to take a chance on James Conner. It's okay. Yeah. And I agree with even if I was selling, why not take the chance on one of those guys like you said, Dalvin, Elijah Mitchell, Josh Jacobs. And that's why it is so crucial to know that, especially in the Dynasty startup, getting James Conner in, because we're going to talk about, his draft value now, like where you can get him in mocks.
Yeah, just quickly, I think what this shows is that this is very much a decimal decision 100%. For us when it comes to buy or sell, because I would definitely sell him or buy him for what you mentioned, and I would definitely sell him for what I mentioned. So, and I genuinely think that in different leagues with different owners, those deals can get done both ways. So, like you said, we're going to talk about his startup value. He went 9.5 in our most recent mock, didn't he?
Yeah, 9.5, mid-9th. I'm happy to take him late 8th, excuse me. Maybe mid-8th, just depending on how that board falls and where you can get him. Because by that time, he's probably your RB3, your RB4, depending on how everything is going. Why not take the chance on James Conner? I think this is why it's such a good opportunity. And by the way, the value you're saying, I don't know if there's anyone out there, but I personally wouldn't trade my first away for James Conner. It has to be that early second.
There will be people.
I get it. There will be people out there. So if you can get that first to sell.
Especially when you consider he finished RB5, Edmonds is gone. I mean, you can easily sell this narrative, guys. Yeah. Look at what he did without Edmonds. So absolutely. I think right now, before the draft, at this point, I do think that you can get that done, especially win now teams. They're very willing to part with late firsts, okay? But 9.5, I'm more than happy with that. Yeah, exactly like you said, late 8th, late 9th, in between there. And, I'm not anti-Conner in a startup. You guys know this. I'm very much wide receiver heavy at the top of my startup drafts. And then James Conner feels like an ideal running back 2 for me if I do that. If I start my first, 7 rounds, heavy wide receiver, quarterbacks, and then maybe James Conner is my RB2. I like that value there. So it's interesting. Let us know. Comment down below. Are you buying or selling James Conner?
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/FantasyLandFam.